come up and just share some things with you, and we will have a moment of silence as well. If you have not gone over to look at the sign, so over here under this tent, there's a sign. It says "Say their names." So we're asking if you can write down names of people who have been killed. Violence comes in many forms, right? So if you have someone, a family member, a friend, someone that you know who has been murdered or a victim of violence, we invite you to write their name down. Okay? So what I'm going to do, because I'm just so happy that the rain has stopped for us, amen. So I don't want to delay in bringing up our speakers. So the first one to come up and speak to us will be Andreas Meyer, who is a immigration attorney.
You got it.
Okay, all right.
You're good.
Thank you, Nicole. So, two immigrants in New York City got together talking about customs of their country versus here in the U.S. And the first immigrant turns to the second and says, you know, here in the U.S., I hear they eat dogs. So if we need to get used to being here, we should do the same thing. So they go to the nearest hot dog stand. They order 2 dogs, opens a package, looks at his friend and says, "What part did you get?" So immigrants have been screwed, victimized, whatever term you want to use in the U.S. for the longest time. There are different waves, whether it's the Irish, whether it's the German, whether it's now the Mexicans or the Asians. But no one has it worse today than the Dreamers. Why? They applied. They told the government, here I am. They're not criminals. They pay the taxes. They have employment authorization. They've graduated in high school or are in school or are in college. These aren't the criminals, because if they did, they'd yank the program and they'd be deported, and I defended a lot of them. So there is a move now to pass some legislation, whether it's the DREAM Act, or there's a variety of different versions of it. Again, we're talking about 800,000. They're not all kids. You have to be at least 15 to apply. You had to have entered before you came 16, before you were 16, and you have to speak the language. So there are certain core requirements, but at the end of the day, this is the group that we should be protecting. But it's not just 800,000, because most of their parents, if they are here, are also undocumented. So if I've now applied, and I'm now 24 years old, I've had this program for 5 years, and I live, and I told the government where I live, where my parents live, what their status is. We're really talking about 1.5 to potentially 2.5 million people that could be deported for doing the right thing, for coming out of the shadows. That's not what America should be about. And this is a very personal subject for me, because but for when I came here, I'd be a dreamer. I mean, I came to the U.S., so my name is Andres Mejer. I was born in Santiago, Chile. My mother's from Chile. My father's from Argentina. I came here when I was 6, not speaking English. I moved to Israel as an adult, not speaking Hebrew. I lived twice in Israel, twice in Chile, twice in the U.S. If there's a mistake an immigrant family can make, we've done it at least once. So today, I'm an attorney, I'm a speaker, I'm an author, helping this community to find options to stay in the U.S. But violence comes in many forms. And another one that we see quite often is domestic violence. As I was speaking to a young lady over there just earlier. Domestic violence is horrific. Now, when I see it, it's normally helping the victim, who happens to be an immigrant, who was helpful to law enforcement and is able to get legal status because she helped prosecute a criminal and get him or her off the streets. So for some individuals, there are options. But too often I see couples who try to resolve their problems by calling the police. They have an argument, so the police gets called, somebody gets arrested, and now comes in the attorney, try to get somebody out of jail, and maybe charges get dismissed, or maybe they don't. So if there isn't violence, obviously don't call the police. If you are afraid for your life, by all means, call 911. But using the police to resolve a verbal dispute usually doesn't work well for one of the two. At the end of the day, if there's one thing that we've learned from this past election, is we've become complacent. We felt, I can't speak for others, I know for myself, I never thought that Donald Trump would become president. I just couldn't imagine it. I knew him 25 years ago. I know him now, not personally. He's not a close personal friend. He doesn't call me when he has immigration questions. Things might be different if he did. Maybe. I don't know about that. But I couldn't imagine it. So I wasn't out there. I wasn't involved. My wife wasn't involved. Conversations at home get very heated now. And we're both Democrats. But still, we felt that we weren't needed. Well, today we are. If one thing is clear, if you believe in something like stopping violence, you have to get out. You have to get involved. You have to speak to your elected officials. Make sure that their votes, how they're going to vote, is in line with yours. If you take nothing away from this, if we do nothing, nothing changes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Andreas. So now we know that violence comes in many forms. So if you Google violence right now on your phone, it's going to say that it's behavior where that involves physical force. I do have a close friend of mine who is a probation officer, not in the state of New Jersey, outside of the state of New Jersey, and he calls me almost in tears. Because he has been told that he has to bring in people who have really committed very minor crimes, but because of their immigration status, he has to call them in, and they are physically forcefully put into cars and taken away, never to see their families again. And so that is violence. Sometimes we think of violence as a gun being shot or somebody hitting someone physically, but there's also other forms of violence. And so we're standing against all forms of violence today. And you being here means that either you're not complacent or you have decided, I will no longer be complacent. I will not look at someone who is being forced physically against their will and turn my eye and turn my head the other way. I can't do it anymore. Okay, so thank you so much for bringing that to our attention. At this time, we will have Austin James from Gays Against Guns. Looking around, there he is, the guy with the cool T-shirt on.
You can get one too.
So hi everyone, how you doing? Oh, great. Good. So first I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming out today. Thank you for the organizers for putting this together. It means a lot. I'm grateful to be up here speaking to you all about something that's important to me, but also it means a lot that all of you have come out as well, because it means that you care. It means that you are, this is a very loving community we have right here in front of us. That's really important. Please never forget your love for others and, the fact that you want peace in this world and love in this world. So thank you so much for coming out here for that. So once again, my name is Austin Greitz. I use the pronouns he, him, his, and himself, and I'm standing in front of you today as a representative of Gays Against Guns, New Jersey. So I wrote a little thing I want to read. Gays Against Guns, or GAG, as we lovingly refer to ourselves, as my shirt says, NRA, prepare to gag. It's great. So we are an inclusive, direct action group of LGBTQ people and their allies committed to non-violently breaking the gun industry's chain of death. And that means investors, manufacturers, the NRA, and politicians who block safer gun laws. GAG was founded in June 2016 in the aftermath of the massacre at Pulse nightclub in Orlando, an incident of gun violence that took the lives of 49 of our siblings while they enjoyed their night in what they thought to be a safe and affirming place for LGBTQ people and their allies. The massacre at Pulse served as a morbid reminder that LGBTQ people are incredibly likely the targets of hate violence. The FBI reported in 2014 that LGBTQ people are in fact the most likely targets of hate violence in the United States. A study by the National Coalition of Anti-Violence Programs corroborates this, while also pointing out that the majority of hate violence committed against LGBTQ people are also specifically targeting people of color and transgender and gender nonconforming people. And we can see that in what happened at Pulse as well. What was not often reported in the news was that that attack happened on the club's Latin night. So most of the folks who were killed were brown folks, and there also were transgender and gender nonconforming entertainers there billed as the entertainment that night. So that was violence not just against the LGBTQ community, but specifically against LGBTQ people of color and transgender and gender nonconforming individuals. And that study that I cited by the Anti-Violence Project also goes on to say that the majority of hate violence against LGBTQ people, almost 60% of it, comes in the form of gun violence as well. So gun violence is obviously an American issue, as we see right now. You know, we're in the wake of another tragedy, another mass shooting, which is unfortunately something you can say every week in this country. But specifically, LGBTQ people are often targeted by gun violence, so that's a problem. So that's why we've decided to do something. So GAG, along with the American Public Health Association and many other organizations and experts, we see gun violence as a public health issue. So why do we say that? We say that because studies show that if you have been exposed to gun violence in the past, and the more times you're exposed to it, the more likely you are to either become a perpetrator of gun violence or become a victim of gun violence. And if we think about that, that's kind of like the exact definition of a disease, right? The more we're exposed to a contagion, the more likely we are to become infected with that disease. So gun violence works the exact same way. However, we don't see studies about gun violence as a public health issue because in '96, the NRA backed the CDC from doing that. We don't see organizations talking about gun violence as a public health issue because in America, we don't see it that way, unfortunately. So GAG wants to talk about it as a public health issue, and we want to bring light to that. So how do we do that? We do it through street theater. So we take a page from the playbook of older LGBTQ activist organizations like ACT UP, who in the 80s and 90s during the AIDS crisis were talking about another public health issue that was important to our community, which obviously was the spread of HIV/AIDS. So we take a page of their playbook, and we do a lot of street theater. We do a lot of really cool protests that are really powerful and leave people who are there and see it, thinking about gun violence in ways that are new and different. So if you're interested in learning more about GAG, I encourage you to come see me. I'm wearing my lovely shirt. I can tell you how you can buy one. Also, I do have palm cards if you're interested in following us on social media and things like that, so you can see, what we're all about. So thank you so much for having me. That's all I have to say. I really appreciate you all coming out, so thanks.
Okay. So if someone could for me write the name Brenda McCool on the Brenda McCool. MCCOOL is the last name, first name Brenda. So Miss Brenda died at the Pulse nightclub. She jumped in front of her son Isaiah when the shooter walked in. I knew Miss Brenda because Isaiah used to go to my church in Lakewood, and so they moved to Florida. And I saw when everything happened, I saw Isaiah's name roll across some social media, or people were saying pray for Isaiah. So anyway, his mother was with him that night, and if you Google Pulse mom, she'll usually pop up. But she was, like I said, lived here in Lakewood for a long time. She battled breast cancer twice and won, and died at Pulse nightclub. So I would like for her name to be added to that list. Thank you so much for talking about Pulse, because it was a horrific event that happened and something that we should never forget. I do want to take a moment to thank some people that are here. I want to thank our sponsors. We do have sponsors that have supported us. Miss Kay Harris. Can you clap for Kay Harris? All right. I don't know if she's here, but she is the owner of the Galleria, which is a business, I want to say a novelty store. Would I be correct of saying that? But it's on the boardwalk here in Asbury. She's also the author of a book, From Amistad to the White House. So if you have not purchased that book, look it up and you can get that. Also, the Asbury Hotel has sponsored us. So we thank them. As well as Neptune City Councilwoman Pamela Renee has sponsored us. And we also have the support of our elected officials. Our Mayor John Moore is right there. If you could wave. Councilwoman Elaine Chapman is right there. Councilwoman Yvonne Clayton is right there. And we also want to acknowledge our council persons who are not here, Councilman Jesse Kendall and Councilwoman Amy Quinn. They have been very supportive of what we have been trying to do here. We have a lot of activists in Asbury Park. It's like we just all moved here and just came here, and then, you know, those us that grew up here, we became activists as soon as we, you know, we're old enough to start marching. So we're thankful that they always support us. So at this time, we'll have, from representing the Democratic LGBTQ Caucus of Monmouth and Ocean County, Lauren Albrecht.
Hi guys, I'm Lauren Albrecht. I chair the Monmouth and Ocean County Democrats LGBTQ Caucus, but today I'm not here to stump for politics or the Democrats or push politics, as I've been told. Politics are something that a person must come to on their own, same with values, and figure out what's important to them. What's important to me today is that not one more trans teen is murdered. Not one more. Not one more gay man is brutalized for being gay. Not one more LGBTQ kid is bullied to the point of thinking that suicide is the only way out. 17-year-old trans teen Allie Lee Steinfeld is the 21st trans person murdered this year in this country. Described by her mother as a loving and kind-hearted daughter, friend, a young person who stated on social media that she was proud to be herself, proud to be trans, and proud to be beautiful, and then murder victim. I won't give you details because I won't give 1 second of attention to those that killed her. The history of violence against LGBTQ persons in this country, as Austin stated, is long. From Stonewall to Matthew Shepard to Pulse. I will quote one of my favorite plays here, Death of a Salesman. Attention must be paid. 21 trans persons dead this year. As many as 66% of trans persons report sexual violence against them. And that's only what's reported, bearing in mind that different states have different rules for what constitutes a hate crime. So not everything that's reported will be reported as a hate crime. And in instances of intersection of color, gender, and socioeconomic standard, those statistics are much, much more dire. In New Jersey, we are fortunate, or more fortunate than other places in this country, to have active laws against bullying and hate crimes. Those are not universal, though. In this world, 27 countries, as of this year, it's illegal or criminalized to be an LGBTQ person. You may have seen last week that at the UN, the US voted not to stand against the death penalty for homosexuality. So in an era where legal protections against LGBTQ persons are liable to be rolled back, and the definition of what constitutes a hate crime is apparently not universally understood, it's up to us to look out for each other and to stand up for those among us who need to be stood up for. It's difficult for me to talk about this stuff without talking about politics. I will just say that. It's difficult for me to stand up here and not tell you who I think you should vote for, because those are the people that will stand up for those rights. So all I will say about it is that we need to look out for each other, and that's all I got. Thank you.
Okay. So before we bring up our last speaker, well, let me acknowledge, I do want to acknowledge Assemblyman Eric Hoteling and Assemblywoman Joanne Downey, who also have supported this effort. So you can clap for them. Thank you. So in addition to being an ordained minister, I'm also a member of Black Lives Matter. I'm also a member of the National Action Network. I am the vice president of the Black Ministerial Caucus at my seminary. So I do want to take a minute to talk to you about violence against Black and brown people, okay? Because I stand here for Tyleek Pugh. I stand here for Price Johnson. I stand here for Jamar Smalls. I stand here for King and Self, who were murdered not even 2 weeks ago in Neptune, New Jersey, sitting in their car. So these are all black men that I've just mentioned that were murdered not even 5 miles from where you're standing right now. I stand here for Nabate Dixon, who was murdered when I was in high school. I honestly could sit here and list so many people that I'd be here the rest of the night. And that's sad. Now, I know there is concern sometimes when we as Black Lives Matter activists want it to be recognized that we need to change our systems that oppress brown and black people, be it law enforcement or otherwise. Now, of course, we are not anti-police. We're anti-bad police. Okay, and we understand that our police are here tonight and they're protecting us and serving us and doing what they have to do. But sometimes people ask, they say, well, what about black on black crime? And, people who killing each other are black. Yeah, well, guess what? Statistics show that there's white on white crime. There's Latino on Latino crime. It's really literally like not a thing. So that it's highlighted sometimes to make it seem like we're killing each other more than other people are killing each other, which is not true. But what scares me is that I don't know if it's in our state, I want to say it's in the country right now, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, somebody who works closer in politics than me, but I know that there was legislation that is they're trying to pass for silencers. Am I right in saying that? Right. So now, yep. Say it again. It's national, right. So now you can kill somebody in silence. Right. These are things that we need to be concerned about. I don't want, at least when I hear a gunshot in my neighborhood, I know to hit the ground. I'm being real. Okay? So now I don't even have that. Because they're trying to pass legislation that can be silenced now. So I can get hit by a bullet and nobody even hears it. These are concerns, not in just the black community, but in all communities. But we need to be concerned that when people of color are killed, sometimes it can be done without anybody paying a penalty as if they killed themselves. That's a problem. It's a problem that Trayvon Martin is dead and nobody ever went to jail for it. That's a problem. Okay. So I did just want to speak on that for a moment because I want us to recognize their lives as well. And if you want to write a name on that card that you think of that there was a victim of violence, a brown or black person, please write it down. I did write down my cousin Dolores Mack, transgender black woman who was killed in New Orleans, and so I stand here for her today as well. All right, I say all that because I'm about to bring up Miss Penny. I call her Miss Penny. Miss Penny works in our school system. She has for many years. She is also, I believe, a minister at her church. And Miss Penny lost her daughter, Kiana, in 1992. I remember it vividly, and I won't talk too much because I wanted her to tell her story, but I remember it vividly because I was 12 when Kiana was killed and we went to school together. And for Felicia, and you were in the community at the same time, and I remember for months it was scary to walk home because we all knew Kiana got abducted when she was walking home. And so we started walking in pairs and we started walking in groups home because we as 11 and 12-year-old kids were scared because who would kill a 12-year-old little girl and be so violent? That murder happened here. Miss D still lives here in Asbury Park. She still serves the children of Asbury Park and working in our school system. Can we just clap for Miss D? Miss Penny D. And she marches every year for her daughter, and that murder is still unsolved, and that's right here from our community. So if somebody could help her up. I believe it. Thank you. You sure? You want us to bring it down? Okay, we'll bring it down. Just for Miss Penny, we're going to bring it down.
Thank you. When I seen that, I said that ain't for me. I can't. My knees started shaking, and that's not for me. But my daughter Kiana was 12 years old. She snuck out the house for the first time in her life to attend a party on Washington Avenue, which cost us her life. For 25 years, I've been marching for justice. We kind of know who the people are, but we don't have the exact who did it. And I'm still waiting on that justice. So for 25 years, I've been marching. I said this year, 2017, was my last year for marching if the case is not solved by May of 2018. If it's not solved by 2018, I'll be back on the streets again. But I'm praying that this will be my last march, because it's 25 years is a long time. But I won't give up. I not only march for my child, I march for every murdered child that was killed, Asbury Park, Neptune, whatsoever. I march for them. It's no longer just a Justice for Kiana march. It's a march for every child that was murdered in Asbury Park. I also, I've been for 25 years, that's the hardest thing to do, because she was my only daughter. I have 4 other sons, but she was my only daughter. And to lose your child to someone that caused her to sneak out of the house and leave her in the woods to die. If it wasn't for a passerby going through those woods, she would have been left in the woods, and I could have not known where she was. She could have been like a missing child. But I thank God for the grace of God that God was watching out. He was there, and he allowed a man he passed away to hear her moan, and they got her to the hospital. She stayed alive, and she was stuck at the house May 1st. On May 2nd, they found her in the woods. May 3rd, she passed. So she didn't die in the woods, and I thank God for that. But I have, for many years, it's a hurting thing when you lose a child. It hurts when we got to stand together as parents. We just can't keep on letting our children get killed out here. We got to take a stand and say we won't stop, and we can't stop. We're going to keep on going on and keep on marching on till they decide to put these guns down. They need to put the guns down, pick up a Bible or something other, instead of just having yourself around here because you get mad with somebody. That is not a reason to take somebody's life. In the old days, you used to fight it out, and then you be back friends. They need to go back to the old ways. But these parents don't know how to teach their child the old ways, how to be respectful to one another, and how to love one another. It is time to put down the hate and love one another for who we are, and not just to have our children out here being murdered. All these children that are being murdered, they have children of their own. I might be talking fast because I'm a fast talker. When I get excited, I just go on. But we are here as parents. When these kids lose their life, you're not only hurting one parent, you're hurting everybody. You're hurting every community. You're hurting the whole community hurt. Not just one child hurt, but everybody hurts. When you sit back and look at the children that have fathers that have been killed, or the ladies that have been killed, their children are growing up without their parents. We need to stop them from killing their children off. They don't know. They kill off their offspring. You don't know what they're going to be. To give them a chance to live their life, to find out what they're going to be. My case, I have not got a chance to see my daughter grow. I didn't get a chance to see her get married. I didn't get a chance to see her in high school. I have not got a chance to see anything, and I will never see these things. But we got to take a stand on the community and start going out here, not letting these people know. Don't be letting these people terrorize you, and you go ahead on, and if you got something against them, talk about it. Don't pick up a gun and shoot, because that is not the way to go. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Miss Penny, for taking the time to be with us. She has a busy schedule herself as a caregiver, so we love you. She told us she was going to have to go, so can you make sure she gets to her car? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay. So we are going to march from here to the casino and back. I don't know how far that is, but this town is only 1 square mile, so it's not that far. Okay, so we're at the halfway mark. We do want to thank Detective Dello, Officers Werner and Cadet. Thank you so much. And the Asbury Park Police Department, the City of Asbury Park, and Asbury Audio. This is Jason. Give it up for Jason. He's always there for us and volunteering his services. So we want to thank him. We want to thank Food Not Bombs over there for bringing us water and really, really good bread and donuts. We appreciate that. And just all the volunteers, anybody who volunteered time in putting this together, and you for being out here tonight. So what we're doing now, we're going to march. We're going to be on the right side. I'm gonna say that right. The right side of Cookman Avenue. We're marching down Cookman Avenue. The police are going to escort us. I believe they're walking with us. I think so. And so we're walking to the casino and back. And then when we come back, we'll have a moment of silence and a visual for those who have lost their life to violence. So if we can start to line up here on the corner. Yes? Okay. So if we can line up on the corner. Right, I'm gonna jump down here and go over to the corner. We got a few children here. They belong to all of us. Everybody watch the kids? Yes? Yes, okay.
Thanks again.
My pleasure. It's a pleasure meeting you.
Yeah, be safe.
All right, thank you,
I'm
sweetheart.
still documenting
Yeah.
it.
If you need anything, you let me know, my love.
Okay, thank you.
Nice talking to you.
Yeah. Be safe.
Thank you. No.
First one. I get it. I don't really know why we have to talk about policy. Be safe out there, everybody. See you on the flip side. This is Jen Coombs from Time to Change Jersey Style from Asbury Park, New Jersey.